Это 28-й все-таки? Пошел! А он еще и ловушку.
Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get into today's video. What's going on, guys? Thanks for joining me here on another episode of Crossing the Line. We're going to take a look at this insane story that's unfolded over the last 48 hours. The Wagner Russian military coup that was apparently a coup. Now it's off. No one knows what's really going on. I have no idea whether this whole thing's just propaganda, and I'd put money on it being propaganda, if anything. I don't know why. I don't know what they're trying to hide. But what the hell happened in Russia over the last 48 hours? We're going to take a look at the story from The Hill. Mercenary group launched armed rebellion in Russia. How we got here. The Wagner Group, the private Russian military contractor organization, turned against the Russian military defense on Friday, launching an armed rebel intended to remove Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu. Sorry if I pronounce any of these names wrong. Russian isn't my preferred language, obviously. Yevgeny Prigozhin had his years-long relationship with the Russian military leader of the Wagner Group, and his forces have been crucial to the Russian success in the war against Ukraine. But relations have broken down rapidly over the past few months, to the point where Prigozhin and his fighters are taking up arms to try to get Russia to change course. The tensions began over the Russian military performance of Wagner's recruitment of conflicts and the amount of supplies and ammunition that the Wagner Group received to help Russian military in Ukraine. Now the strained relations have expanded to Prigozhin's accusations that the Russian military is attacking his forces. He also denounced Russia's justification for the war. Here's how we got to the point where an armed rebellion was launched in Russia before the Wagner Group chief halted his troops and made a deal. The Wagner Group was first seen fighting in 2014 as conflict broke out in the eastern Donbass region of Ukraine. This came after Russia seized the Crimean Peninsula and annexed the referendum internationally denounced as unfair. Separatists in the Donetsk and Luhansk provinces, which made up Donbass, fought the Ukrainian government to declare independence from Ukraine. The Russian government supported the separatists and sent troops to the weapons to support them, despite Russia denying it sent aid. Kind of like what the US is doing now. Moscow turned the Wagner Group as private contractors to help them with the fighting in Donbass, while allowing the government to maintain a level of deniability about its involvement. Russia also sent Wagner troops to Syria as part of the nation's support for President Bashar al-Assad, the Syrian civil war. The group has also fought in multiple African countries. Western countries have accused the group of human rights abuses and destabilizing activities in Africa and Ukraine, because, Russia's not the only massive global power that does that. China does that. Australia's had a hand in it. America's like the king of doing that. Russia has increasingly relied on the Wagner Group during its full-scale invasion of the Ukraine, and Russian forces struggled to make gains in the Ukrainian territory. Wagner came up to focus on the Ukrainian city of Bakhmut during a months-long siege and was critical to the Russia taking the city last month. But Prigozhin lobbed harsh criticism of the effectiveness and management of the war from military and defense ministry during the siege. He accused Shoigu and the General Valery Gerasmenov, the commander overseeing the war effort, and failing to manage the war and not providing enough ammunition to soldiers. So that seems to be the entire crux of the matter. Is what they're saying anyway, is that they were not getting enough materials, they were not getting enough support, and they were kind of making it so that they were actively not wanting them to win the war. So if that's the case, and they've just made a deal where they're going to get the support and everything that they need, Ukraine's going to have a hell of a fight on their hands. And the American media, I know, is saying that Ukraine is winning the war, but you look at the ground footage, you look at any of the videos, and you look at any of the media that's coming out about it, and if you have any sense of the matter, it's not the case. Ukraine is still losing ground. They are suffering massive losses. So is Russia, but they are getting their ass handed to them And America sending in tanks, us sending in jeeps and tanks and things like that just doesn't seem to be helping enough to push the Ukrainians into a position where they can actually win. The only way I see out of it for Ukraine is if they come to the table and start bargaining and start looking for a peace deal. And they should be doing it. Everyone should be looking for some sort of version of peace over there instead of just dropping bombs on innocent civilians and killing children and gunning down mass amounts of troops. He said Russia's plan to invade Ukraine completely backfired and suggested Russia could lose the war, and the nation changed its top leadership last month. Prigozhin did not achieve a significant political victory once the Wagner Group successfully captured Bakhmut, making his organization responsible for the only two significant Russian victories last summer. The group took the town of Soledar near Bakhmut in January, but Wagner took on heavy casualties, win over Bakhmut, and Prigozhin said he lost about 20,000 fighters over the months. Half of them were his employees and the other half were Russian prisoners. Wagner's recruitment of convicts has also increasingly frustrated the Russian Defense Ministry, as did Prigozhin's decision to pull his forces out of Bakhmut to regroup and from the losses. Russia requires allied fighters to sign contract to give Moscow more control. As a result of the rising tensions, Russian government took action to try to rein in Wagner Group and increase its control over the organization's actions. The Kremlin began to require all fighters allied with the Russian military to sign a contract that would grant the government greater authority over their activities. The deadline for the groups to agree to sign the contract on July 1st, Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov signed the order on behalf of his forces, but Prigozhin refused to sign it. The declaration from the Kremlin did not specifically name the Wagner Group, but it was seen as a target of concern for the organization. Prigozhin argued that Russia is distorting the facts about the losses during the war, saying that the victory was impossible when his forces had joined the fighting last spring. Prigozhin's comments grew even more bold and defiant after the Russian military on Friday, after he openly rejected what had been one of Russia's original justifications for going to Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin claimed that he called a special military operation was necessary to demilitarize Ukraine and protect ethnic Russians in Russian-speaking parts of the country from persecution by the Ukrainian government. He also said that Ukraine was on behalf of the West by serving them as a battering ram against Russia. But Prigozhin accused Russian government of lying about the true purpose of the war, which he said was to install a pro-Russian ally of Putin, Viktor I'm not even going to pronounce that one, as president of the Ukraine, divide its assets. He said Russian forces were stealing loads in the Donbass region but wanted more. He also blamed Russian oligarchs in starting a war and asserted that they were practically ruling Russia. Prigozhin avoided directly criticizing Putin, his role in the war, but the Russian president is ultimately the one who made the decision to invade Ukraine and who has led the attempted justifications of the war. Prigozhin also accused Russian military of attacking Wagner's camps and killing many of his soldiers, said the Shoigu and Guzmanov met and decided to eliminate Wagner. The Russian National Anti-Terrorism Committee opened a criminal investigation of Prigozhin shortly following his comments, looking into allegations it was inciting an armed rebellion. The committee called Prigozhin to immediately end all illegal activities. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that the probe was launched that Putin was aware of ongoing situations surrounding Prigozhin and necessarily measures were being taken. Putin vows to put down armed mutiny. The Federal Security Services hours later formally charged him with armed rebellion and called for his forces to arrest him and refuse his criminal and treacherous orders. It is said that the statement is a stab in the back to the Russian troops. Prigozhin said that early Saturday at local time his fighters left Ukraine and instead moved into Russian territory to remove Shoigu from power. He vowed that the group would destroy anyone who stands in the way. The forces have reached the town of Rostov-on-Don, the location of Russia's military headquarters in the southern region, which is overseeing the Ukrainian war effort. The United Kingdom Defense Ministry reported that Wagner had almost certainly occupied key security sites and was aiming to move towards Moscow. The ministry called the rebellion the most significant challenge to the Russian state in recent times. Prigozhin said that 25,000 of his soldiers under his command and called on the Russian army to not resist. Putin pledged to put down the armed mutiny and accused Prigozhin of treason and betrayal, saying that the rebellion is pushing Russia towards anarchy and defeat in Ukraine. The UK ministry said the loyalty of Russia's security forces, especially the Russian National Guard, will be critical to determining how the situation will play out. After capturing a defense ministry building regional headquarters in Rostov, Wagner troops began moving north towards Moscow. This resulted in the mayor and the regional governor of Moscow announcing a counter-terrorism operation in the region, placing security forces on high alert. The Red Square was barricaded and Russian forces set up numerous checkpoints and armoured vehicles around the city. Forces got as far as Lipetsk, about 250 miles from Moscow. As Wagner forces advanced north, the deal announced between Prigozhin and the Russian government, they led Prigozhin to order his troops back to their bases. We are turning our columns and going back to the direction towards our field camps in accordance with the plan, Prigozhin said. But Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko took credit for the deal, which provides security guarantees of the Wagner troops, according to the Associated Press. Wagner troops are now on the move to Belarus and to be stationed there, Prigozhin said on Saturday. Troops who join Prigozhin will not be prosecuted, and those who do not will be offered roles in the Russian military. So basically, he's just signed his own death warrant. If he was going to coup against Vladimir Putin, you'd want to finish the deal, wouldn't you? And you want to sign his death warrant. But it looks like he signed his own. Now, I have no idea where any of this is leading, whether any of it was just propaganda from Russia, propaganda from America, propaganda from everyone involved. I'd say it's just a shit show, basically, over the last 48 hours of what the hell's been going on. I know it was insane to see people on Twitter praising the Wagner Group and just forgetting all the atrocities that they've just committed in Ukraine. I mean, I've seen videos of them killing soldiers, Ukrainian POWs with sledgehammers to their head. So they're not a very nice bunch of people, and even if they went and took Putin out, I don't think they're going to be any better than Putin. So I don't know why all these lefties on Twitter were just saying that, the Wagner Groups are a bunch of fantastic guys. So I don't know why people on Twitter thought that these guys were going to be some sort of saving grace and hero. They're just as bad as the Russian soldiers, if not worse. I mean, they're prisoners, whether they're political prisoners or not. They've lost 20,000 troops, and half of those were prisoners. So I don't think any of those people that they've rescued from the prisons were probably good people either. Who knows? But interesting developments over the last 48 hours, and it was really eye-opening to see just how the social media companies and how the mainstream media companies tackled this, and they put it out there that America was going to win, Ukraine was going to win, the Wagner groups were going to kill Putin and take over Moscow, and they put all their chips in on that, and obviously that hasn't turned out right. But it's interesting to see this whole turn of events has just died down in the last 48 hours. And if you did see any of the footage of them staging up around any buildings in there in Rostov, it didn't look very realistic. It looked like a photo op more than anything. I mean, troops were laying down in the street with no cover, aiming at nothing, maybe just a building, that's about it, and they had one tank there. It looked like a photo op more than anything. I mean, any of the footage coming out of Ukraine and that, where you see people getting blown up by drones, shelled, close combat footage, you can see that they're not just laying down in the middle of the open and sitting there looking up at a building. It looked staged more than anything, but who knows? I have no idea what the hell that last 48 hours was about. That was just a real weird thing. Maybe it was just to cover up for anything else in the media, like how Hunter Biden's just had to plead guilty. Joe Biden's now in trouble for bribery and any of that, and now the mainstream media is actually actively attacking and questioning the Biden regime. Maybe it was got something to do with that, to cover up that, because we had that stupid submarine story bouncing around for the last over a week now, and as soon as that came to an end, this coup attempt blew up everywhere. So I don't know what they're trying to hide from everyone, but mainstream media has definitely been doing their job and pushing their agenda. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.